Did you know that kids eat 1,095 meals every year?
And if you include snacks, it's more like 4 trillion meals a year. The best part is that we parents have the grand honor of making sure they're fed each and every one.
Honestly, the responsibility kind of sucks sometimes, but we're here with some real help and camaraderie too.
We're Stacy and Megan, hosts of Didn't I Just Feed You, a weekly podcast that gets real about what it takes to feed our families.
We're two longtime food professionals who, between us, have worked on 5 cookbooks, 2 television shows, countless stories for publications like Better Homes and Gardens, Every Day with Rachel Ray, Epicurious, and TheKitchen.com.
Between us, we also parent 4 kids between the ages of 7 and 16. Despite all of this work experience, at the end of the day, we too are just 2 working parents who also get tired making meals happen at home.
Tune in to Didn't I Just Feed You for kitchen tricks, product recommendations, and tons of meal ideas, like how to turn nachos into a legit family dinner. Get inspired by our bi-weekly What We're Cooking and Eating Now series, or check out how to get your cooking mojo back for even more ideas. Listen to Didn't I Just Feed You wherever you get your podcasts.
I need a snack.
Just because breastfeeding is natural doesn't mean it's easy, but you don't have to do it alone. That's where the Lactation Network comes in. The Lactation Network helps parents at every stage of the breastfeeding journey, whether you need support resolving feeding issues, choosing the right breast pump, creating a plan for weaning, or anything in between. The Lactation Network is the largest network of licensed breastfeeding experts in the country. They provide in-home, in-office, and telehealth consultations in all 50 states with no out-of-pocket cost. Get the breastfeeding care you deserve with the Lactation Network. Visit tln.care to schedule your own insurance-covered lactation consultation today. My NICU baby is turning 16 this week, so I'm sharing 5 things I remember from having a baby in the NICU. Welcome to the All About Pregnancy and Birth podcast. I'm Dr. Nicole Calloway Rankins, a board-certified OBGYN who's been in practice for nearly 15 years. I've had the privilege of helping over 1,000 babies into this world, and I'm here to help you be calm, confident, and empowered to have a beautiful pregnancy and birth. Quick note, this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice. Check out the full disclaimer at drnicolerankins.com/disclaimer. Now let's get to it. Hello there. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. Whether you are a new listener or a returning listener, I am so glad you're spending some time with me today. So in this quick short episode, I am sharing 5 things I remember from having a baby in the NICU. If you don't know, our first daughter was born early. She was born 8 weeks early, born at 32 weeks exactly. She also had a rare intestinal malformation called duodenal atresia. It's when the first part of the intestines are not connected together. It happens in about 1 in 5,000, 1 in 10,000 pregnancies, so it's actually incredibly rare. And she had to have surgery 3 days after she was born to fix her intestines, and she spent a month in the NICU. And I should back up and say I just went into preterm labor early. Like, I don't know what happened, but I just went into preterm labor early, and that's how she came into this world early. And again, she spent a month in the NICU. That was one of the most challenging times of my life for sure. And that's why I just want to share a few things about it. Now, to fast forward to this week, she turns 16 this week. Time truly does fly, and she's doing fantastic. She's a year ahead in school. She is a straight A student. The child has never seen a B in her life. And she is also a massive Taylor Swift fan. So we are so grateful that things ended up being well. But I can tell you, you never forget having a baby in the NICU. So let me hop in and share some things that I remember from those 16 years ago. So number 1 is I cried a lot. like a lot. I remember crying every single day. I actually had to limit myself to crying 3 times a day. I felt like it was something that I could control in a situation that was completely uncontrollable. So I would have my 3 times a day that I could cry. And then, I had to save them up for the next day. So I really remember crying a lot because, of course, it wasn't anything I anticipated. And she had a couple of minor setbacks while she was there. And it really was just overwhelming. We were visiting her every day, twice a day. Hadn't gone back to work quite yet. So thankfully I didn't have to deal with that, but it's a lot. It is a lot. It is a lot to have a baby in the NICU. The second thing I remember is that NICU nurses are true angels. Oh my gosh. The NICU nurses are just so wonderful. Just wonderful people who help you manage having this new tiny human and actually help you feel like a parent, even though your baby is not with you at home. So I remember the NICU nurses were like, come on, y'all are going to get in here and you're going to give her a bath. And we were so terrified, even though we were, I'm a physician. People thought I knew what I was doing. I don't know what I'm doing with a brand new baby. I know how to deliver babies, but not to deal with the NICU baby. But the nurses would just pull you right in, come on, let's change the diapers. Let's give her a bath. Let's do all these things to help you feel like a parent. They truly are angels. And they are the ones who are there at the bedside with your baby most of the time. Those are the ones who you are going to get to know, who you are going to get to chat with while you are sitting there visiting your child. So I cannot say this enough. NICU nurses are angels. All of us OBGYNs recommend that you take a prenatal supplement during pregnancy and ideally at least 3 months before getting pregnant. But which product is right for you, and will it have all of the nutrients you need for every stage of your journey? Choosing a prenatal can be so confusing, and that is why I am delighted to tell you about Element, which takes all the stress out of the process. Element is the first ever personalized prenatal supplement. It's designed by maternal fetal medicine doctors and is not only customized for each person, but it also changes over time for each stage of your journey from preconception to postpartum. Element provides a tailored prenatal supplement whether you have certain dietary preferences or a high-risk pregnancy or nutritional deficiencies like low iron or vitamin D. And every 30 days, they can adjust your prenatal protocol to make sure it is the perfect fit for you. Also, Element has exceptional ingredient quality, no fillers, no additives, and the packaging is eco-friendly too. Every pregnancy is unique, and your prenatal should be too. So visit helloelement.com. That's Element with 2 L's, and use the code Dr. Nicole to get 20% off your first order today. I remember lots of stories from the NICU nurses, but one in particular stands out. There was a nurse, she was from the Midwest, and somehow we got on the conversation of where she was from, and she just wanted everybody to know that you cannot tip a cow over. Like when you see movies and things where cows get tipped over, you can't tip over a cow. They're too heavy. It's not possible. All right. So the next thing I remember is that you really don't see the doctors very much at all. And these days it's actually mostly nurse practitioners, or often nurse practitioners, who are staffing the NICUs. The doctors are kind of backing up the nurse practitioners, and you really don't see them much at all. They come and they make rounds, and it's going to be once a day. And if you're not there, then you may never see the physician. You have to connect and get to see them, at the moments that they are there. And obviously that's not to say that they're not doing anything or they're not working, of course, but you really will not see the NICU doctors very much at all. It's really the NICU nurses who you see the most. Number 4, I remember that there was just a lot of just sitting around. Like you're not really doing a whole lot except just sitting around. When babies are in the NICU, they are learning how to eat. They are learning how to maintain their temperature. They are learning how to breathe on their own. And those things a lot of it is just kind of sitting there and waiting. So you do a lot of just sitting around. Obviously, they let you hold your baby as much as you can, depending on what they're connected to or not connected to. But you're just kind of sitting around. It's a rather, gratefully pretty boring, just watching, waiting, feeding, growing. Like that's what it is in the NICU, just a lot of sitting around. And you get an opportunity again to talk to the nurses and get to know them and things like that as well. But there's just tons of sitting around in the NICU. And then the final thing I will say is that I remember that it could have been a lot worse. Our daughter was in there, like I said, for a month, exactly 1 month to the day that she came home. But I remember in particular, there was a baby who was celebrating his first birthday in the NICU. He had been in the NICU for his entire life. And that was just so heartbreaking and challenging, and I just could not imagine. So I was grateful because I realized that it most certainly could have been a lot worse. And then I'll add one more thing that I'll say, reflecting back on my time from having a baby in the NICU, is that you will never forget what it is like to have your baby in the NICU, because it's just so different than what you anticipate for your baby's birth. But it does get easier. And over time, it will get easier. It won't be so painful. It won't be so challenging. You won't be so scared. You won't be so worried about what's going to happen. Over time, things do fade in the sense that worry you had of when your baby was in the NICU and when your baby's going to come home goes away. But you will never forget having your baby in the NICU. That I can say for sure. Now, if you have a baby that's in the NICU, or just to put a mental note, hopefully you won't need this particular episode. It's episode 76 of the podcast, and it's with a neonatologist, Dr. Terry Major Kincaid, and she gives great questions and strategies and approaches for things you can do when you have a baby in the NICU. It is the episode I wish I had before I had a baby in the NICU. It's an episode that I hope you don't ever need, but if you end up having your baby in the NICU, it's episode 76, drnicolerankins.com/episode 76. And that is with Dr. Terry Major Kincaid, and it's about having a baby in the NICU. All right. So there you have it. Please share this podcast with a friend. It helps me to reach and serve more people. Also subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening to me right now. And if you love the podcast, I would so appreciate you leaving a 5-star review in Apple Podcast. I love to hear what you think about the show. So you can do that there, or you can shoot me a DM on Instagram and let me know. Let me know if your baby was in the NICU. Let me know what you remember most about having your baby in the NICU. So that's it for this episode. Do come on back next week, and remember that you deserve a beautiful pregnancy and birth.